I just wanted to pop on there with my webcam and say hello. Now I'll get that out of the way so that you can watch our screens shots for today. I really am glad that you're all joining me today and really feel such camaraderie with most of you because we're sort of all in this new frontier together, right? As we all are the first decade sort of moving to the cloud. So I'm so grateful for you having me today to share my experience. For those of you who are familiar with cloud accounting, you know that you are performing accounting services using primarily cloud-based solutions. So you're working in a web browser like Chrome, right? And you're using web-based software programs or applications called apps. And you or your clients may also be accessing this information in these apps, if not from a different browser in a different building, maybe from a mobile device. And all of the data is centralized, so you don't have to go type it in somewhere else in order to access it. So you know that these apps that we use are so important to our work. They are our tools, right? Like a carpenter's hammer and screwdriver or a chef's stove and skillet. As accounting professionals, we don't necessarily want our clients to tell us how to do our work. We're the experts. We should be guiding our clients. And one way we can do that is by designing the flow of their data to and from the general ledger. So today's webinar is aimed primarily at the principal or director or manager of the firm, someone familiar with the entire operation of the firm. Once you get everything in place, then you can delegate work to staff. However, having said that, because we are early adopters, basically, in this cloud accounting, it may be that the partner of your firm is more familiar with the old style of working, and you may be new to the firm, and you may be the one bringing in the cloud accounting solutions. So that's great too, absolutely welcome here. But my point is that this selection process of the apps you're going to use and defining how the firm will do its work is the responsibility of the firm. So anyway, this can be an overwhelming process, especially if you're just getting started in cloud accounting. So don't feel like it's supposed to be easy. So let me start here by introducing myself. I am the founder of Redmond Accounting, Inc. We're a boutique cloud accounting firm in Northern California. And we have multiple staff that actually work in different states. So we can't look over at each other and see each other. We all work on cloud-based apps. We're 100% cloud-based. We moved all of our, in our case, we use QuickBooks, so we use QuickBooks Online. We moved all of our clients to QuickBooks Online in 2011. We moved to fixed fee pricing in 2011. And with QuickBooks Online, and for all of you listening, pick whichever general ledger tool or tools you want to use. I'm just sharing, in my firm it was QuickBooks Online. And then there are apps that will work together with that. I'm also the co-founder of Arrow Workflow. So through my years, this is our 12th year Redmond Accounting has been in practice. And through those years, and before that I was a controller and IT manager in Silicon Valley, over all those years, one important piece was, of course, doing client work. Another important piece was running the firm. Most of us know how to do accounting. We're here as accounting professionals meeting together. But not necessarily all of us knew how to run a firm. And so Arrow Workflow is a workflow management and practice management tool that came to be just purely by doing this work and needing a solution for how to organize so many different staff people in different places doing work at different frequencies. Then I also work very closely with Intuit. I co-author the QuickBooks Online certification. So for any of you involved in the world of QuickBooks Online, if you take the core certification and then the advanced certification, I'm one of the co-authors on that. And also I do trainings around the country. So next week I'll be in San Diego teaching people, accounting professionals, how to use QuickBooks Online. So that's me, so you know where I'm coming from. The work we do in Redmond Accounting, by the way, is not tax. We're doing client accounting services. So we are managing the general ledger, recording all the transactions, paying bills, doing payroll, managing company credit cards, things like that. So these are our learning objectives for today. We're going to talk about the requirements that you need for the solutions that you're looking for. And then we're going to talk about methods for finding and evaluating solutions, these apps. And finally, identifying the best practices for implementing these new solutions. I just want to make a comment here because so much of this is new to many of us. Remember that, well, I don't know if most of us can remember this, but you've heard that with the onset of the computer age many moons ago, that allowed businesses and workers to optimize and automate their manual work. All of a sudden they had these big computers available to do some of this for us, and it required those workers to change their very manual workflow into one that was more automated and learn to trust and learn how to use these computers. This is a little bit similar for us now today as we move to this web-based platform. It feels uncomfortable to many of us at first. We're used to our computer saving things on our hard drive, having things in the building, and now we have to trust that a server out there in the cloud is going to be dependable and that it's not going to be hacked and things like that, right? So we have to, again, explore new methods to bring efficiency to our business processes because the way we work now is changing a little bit using mobile apps and web browser apps. So the next generation of business owners is more tech savvy. They're mobile. They're not necessarily tied to their desk, and they're going to want solutions that you're providing for them to be mobile and support them. So we accountants need to be prepared to support them. Okay, we're going to start out here with a poll. These are our CPE polls, so make sure that you answer these. Our first poll, let me put it up, is how many cloud-based apps do you use regularly? I'm going to give everybody a good minute here. So let's see, make sure everyone can see that. Great, everyone's answering. The options are none, I don't use any cloud-based apps, or I use some but not very regularly, or 1, or 2 to 5, or 6 or more. And so this means you use your internet browser to access a software program to do your work. And I'll just throw some out. These are ones that I'm in all the time. Google Apps, Gmail, right? Google's email program, Google Calendar, Google Drive, or maybe you're on Office 365 or some other web-based access to your email and calendar. QuickBooks Online or whatever accounting software program you're using. Anybody out there using bill pay software? We use Bill.com. Maybe you're managing expense reimbursements and company credit cards. We use Expensify. Again, I'm just trying to share what we use. Certainly find the one that's right for you, but there are at least 6 right there that we use probably every day. Okay, so I think we've got 92% of the votes. So I'm going to close that out. And we'll move right along. So let's start off with determining or talking about determining the requirements for a new solution. You need to know what you're looking for, right? The first step is to define your services. You need to define what services your firm sells so that you know what features you're looking for in an app. This is a really important piece that I could go on talking about for a whole other hour, but basically I just want to underline the point that the experience and knowledge and know-how you have as the principal at the firm and then collectively with all of your staff, what you guys know how to do in your firm, that's your knowledge capital. That's what you're selling. You need to define what services you sell, and then you need to design the workflow, how you're going to do it. And then you can very clearly sell your services, and then you've also set the expectation, and so your service delivery is going to go smoother there. So define your services. Do you sell payroll or do you not sell payroll? If you're selling payroll, then you need to design how you do payroll. Think it out, design your overall accounting solutions and all the tools that you're going to use. Think about which program you're going to use for the core general ledger. Are you going to have just one? Or are you going to have several that you support? Then determine which features are not available in that core accounting software that you need additional solutions for, that you need add-ons for. For example, does your core general ledger solution support inventory and all the features you need for inventory, or mileage tracking, or time tracking? Some of them have time tracking, but you may need managers' approvals on the time tracking, and you may need to go out to an app for that. Bill pay, payroll, tax prep, company credit cards. Think about all those services you're going to sell and whether your core accounting software has it or whether you need to go outside and find a solution. Also, think about you're either setting up a brand new firm, but you've done accounting work and you can think about the way you've done that work, or you're a firm that's been in practice and you can think about the way you're currently doing the work and pinpoint those areas of inefficiency that you want to optimize. Look for manual processes, places where you're having to enter data entry more than once, right? If you have to enter it and then enter it again over here, duplicate data entry. Think about what processes cause a negative impact on both your clients and your firm's profitability, like redundant staffing positions. Consider the financial effect of inefficient processes. Think about the different people who may use the apps. The firm may divide the work between multiple staff, right? Your client may use the app to submit information to you or to approve something or to access their financial reports. You also want to understand the goals of the firm's owner and of the staff who are performing the work and of the clients. So you need to really make sure that you understand exactly what the person doing the work needs and what the owner needs in terms of profitability and efficiency and things like that. As you're doing this research and you're assessing how you want things to be, the best way, the most effective way you can design this workflow, maybe ask open-ended questions when you're talking to your staff or the client, so that you don't put words in their mouth and that you can kind of hear where the pain points are. Even observe the service delivery. Map out that entire process for every service you offer. And then make a list. We're accountants, we like lists. List the features and the requirements that you need in an app. If you have this list, when you go out searching for apps, then you're going to be able to better determine which apps are meeting your needs or not. And you know, you can also list any inefficiencies that you found in the previous step that you are searching for a solution for, because maybe you don't know to list it as a need, but if you have it listed as an inefficiency, you may not have heard about a new technology or feature that an app may offer, and when you see that, you can think, oh, I didn't have that as a need, but look, this app really helps that inefficiency we have, so that you take note of that when any of the apps you explore solve for that inefficiency. So just to kind of get you thinking about more specifics, I'm just going to throw out some questions that I might have in my mind when I'm doing this. Are you recording financial activity and providing financial reports? If the firm is doing that type of work, for example, does it need specific reports? What reports? It probably needs a balance sheet and a P&L. Does it also need accounts payable reports? Think about what reports you need. Does it need a reconciliation tool? Does it need an audit log? Does it need multiple options for categorizing financial activity in addition to the chart of accounts? In QuickBooks language, Does it need class tracking or location tracking or job tracking, for example? Do you need inventory functionality? So if you're offering the core general ledger type of bookkeeping work, think about those questions and list your needs for exactly what you need that software to do. If you're offering the service to your clients for paying bills, does it need to be web-based? Does it need multiple different levels of user permissions for best practices and separation of duties, right? If you're paying bills for clients, you may want one person that enters the bill to be different from another person that approves the bill and different from another person that pays the bill, so that you've got the lowest chance of fraud available, right? Does it need the ability to only allow the person that pays the bills to pay them if the bills are approved, so that if the bill is not approved, nobody can pay it? Do you need the ability to create some policy to ensure that there are multiple approvers? Some clients will come to us and say, okay, you can pay our bills, but we've got to have 2 levels of approvers. So you want a solution that will handle that. Maybe you want to be able to send paper checks and electronic payments. Maybe you want to be able to store those source documents. So think about things like that if you're paying bills. If anyone out there has clients where you're in charge of processing their company credit cards, then think about things like, does the cardholder, that's your client, the business's employees who are holding the credit cards and spending money around town using these company cards, do they need to be able to get their receipts to you, right? Do they need to be able to put a memo about what that charge was for? Even better, can they select the expense account category for the purchase they made? And then does the cardholder's manager need to be able to see the monthly expense report and approve it and kind of keep an eye on things? And then what tools does the accounting team have for recording the information? Or payroll. Anyone doing payroll out there? Do you need direct deposit? Does the payroll app need to be able to calculate state taxes in a particular state? Do you need to be able to calculate local taxes, payroll taxes? Do you need to be able to e-pay and e-file taxes and forms? So just wanted to jump into the details there and just get your mind thinking about the kind of things that you want to list and what you need as a firm in the tool that you, or tools I should say, plural, that you're going to use to provide the services, because this is your secret sauce. I'm not even saying that it's that much of a secret, but this is how you're going to provide those services, and you want to be known to your clients to provide great services. And they just want to hear that you're going to take care of things and how it looks from their end. You don't have to tell, I mean, they don't probably even want to know all the details of this information that you had to do when researching all these apps. This is our responsibility, and this is part of the great value we bring, is the ability to know the accounting cycle, know the separation of duties and the controls, and know which apps, and bring to them these solutions that are going to make their life so seamless. So, oh, look at us at another poll again. So let's launch the second poll. Okay, the second poll is asking you, what's your biggest challenge when selecting a new software solution? All right, finding the right one, right? There are so many out there. Which one should I use? Or once you pick it, getting your staff to accept it and use it. Or maybe your staff are on board with everything. Maybe it's getting the clients to accept it and use it. Or some other reason. So, oh good, everybody's voting, and most everyone is saying finding the right solution. And that is difficult. Okay, I'm going to close that poll. Thank you so much. Now let's talk about beginning the exploration for finding and evaluating potential solutions. Use that checklist we just made of your listed needs to find the apps that are going to be the solution that you're looking for. To start with, look for apps that integrate with the general ledger. That's probably one of the most important pieces. So because we're centered around QuickBooks Online, I'll use that as an example. QuickBooks Online allows third-party developers, other companies that create apps, to create apps that share data with the QuickBooks program. So these apps will provide custom and unique processes that QuickBooks doesn't offer, yet the apps will push the relevant data back and forth to QuickBooks Online so that you don't have to go retype it into QuickBooks Online. These apps go through a very vigorous security approval process to get listed in Intuit's apps.com marketplace. If you want to see, if you're using QuickBooks Online, you want to see that QuickBooks Online's app store is at the web address apps.com. And if they're listed there, that tells you that they've been approved in the really high-level security approval process. QuickBooks Online has an entire ecosystem of apps to choose from, and so I just really want to stress here to be deliberate about integrating systems, because if you use these apps that integrate with QuickBooks Online, then you've got this automation piece. Here you can research whether the integration is a one-way sync. Some apps just sync data from QuickBooks Online into the app. So maybe they sync the customer list, and so you don't have to retype that all into your app. When you start that app, it'll just pull it in from QuickBooks. Or maybe it's vice versa. Maybe you have information in that app and it'll push it into QuickBooks Online, and it's a one-way sync into QuickBooks Online. Some of these apps, a lot of these apps, have a two-way sync, in which case the information goes back and forth from QuickBooks to the app and vice versa. You also want to ask, so you can make a little checklist here of some of the things I'm talking about here, is what's the sync like? One-way sync, two-way sync. Also find out whether the app syncs automatically or whether you need to go push a button to sync it. Because if you have to push a button, fine, that can be very easy, especially with cloud-based apps, because you don't have to have, for example, QuickBooks or the app it's syncing to open, because these apps are always open and on their servers. So cloud-based apps, the sync process is much easier than when we used to have to do this on the desktop. On the desktop world, you have to have the computer on, open up the software that you're syncing into, go click some little sync engine, and make sure the internet's on, and then start the sync there. But if the app does not sync automatically and you do need to push a button to sync, then you just want to make sure that you add that into part of your process. When you're defining what services you sell and then how you're selling them, make sure that you remember that somebody has to go sync regularly. Also, find out which data is pushed to and from the one program to the other. Is it the customer list, as I talked about a minute ago? Or maybe it's time tracking records. Or maybe you're using a bill pay app and it's going to push the bill transaction, debiting the, say, expense account, crediting AP, and then maybe it also pushes the bill payments to, debit out the accounts payable and credit the bank account. So you want to find all that information, the vendor list, everything, find out exactly what data is pushing and see if that meets your list of needs. So with all of these, compare your findings in this integration when you research how it's integrated. Compare that against the needs that you identified and see whether it's sufficient in any way. And there's your list of needs and then researching one app, and then as you start researching the second and third apps that are of the same, let's say it's a bill pay app you're looking for, you start comparing them to each other. So maybe your list of needs is so long and detailed, maybe one doesn't fit every one of your needs, but maybe one does stand out substantially against the others. So anyway, this point I'm making about integrating is so important because it automates the work, which in turn will reduce labor and errors, the likelihood of errors at least, because if you have to enter things in two different places, you could potentially have an error there happen. And this leads, of course, to increased efficiency and increased profit. So look for other features also that automate work. And some examples of automating work, in addition to the integration, the sync, are look for apps that have bank feeds. For example, in my firm, we use Expensify when we're processing any expense reimbursements for our clients' staff or the company credit cards. So apps like that will hook up to the bank feed so that all the credit card information will just download into the app for that user, and they just need to come on and tell you what they spent money on and hit submit, put their receipt in. Or look for other automation tools like e-payments if you're paying bills, or if you have an invoicing program where you're going to invoice the customer for one of your clients. If you can get paid electronically, or if you can pay your vendors electronically, this can be more efficient. This can also be preferable. I mean, you make your vendors happier when you pay them faster. And if you're doing the bill pay for your clients and you're making their vendors happy, you know, when your clients, the people they do business with, are happy with the accounting side of things, that makes you look good. So any of these features that are now so available to us can really improve the processing and also the way your clients perceive you as their solution provider. I just want to say a word here about these cloud apps, that they mostly, I think I can say all of them, charge subscription fees. And that's different for us because for years we bought a software program. Maybe we paid $150, maybe we paid $1,000, whatever, but we bought it and we owned the license to it. And now we're moving into a different world of these subscription fees, and that feels really expensive. It feels that way. And if you added up all your subscription fees for each client, for each app, and you compare it to what you were paying for the desktop license, the subscription fees may still look more expensive, but I ask you to try to put a cost on the manual labor related to working with the desktop apps that we have historically. And there truly, truly are many more solutions in the cloud accounting space to optimize that workflow and reduce manual labor that add up. In most every case that I've worked on in the past 7 years or so in the cloud accounting space, the automation of the manual labor outweighs the subscription fees. I mean, you can replace people sometimes. So take a look at that. That's often something that we explore with clients when they're concerned about the subscription fees. And you know what? Maybe you don't talk about the subscription fees to your client. Maybe your firm pays for the subscription fees and it's all included and rolled up in whatever fixed fee that you present to your client to do their work. So next here on our screen, the next step is for you to research these apps, explore potential solutions, use your list of identified needs, look for features that fill those needs and that also optimize processes and that provide features that are not available in the core general ledger app or apps that you're using. Learn about how the app works, what features it offers. Read testimonials and reviews from your peers. That can help. If you're in any Facebook groups or LinkedIn groups or other peer groups, you can ask colleagues what their favorite apps are. So if you're looking for a bill pay app, put that out there and you're going to get a ton of answers. I see huge discussions going on about these kind of things. And then I'll finally say on this research apps part, attending industry tech conferences. I know it means packing up and flying somewhere most of the time and leaving your client work for a few days, But I have to say that the industry technology conferences that I've attended were just game changers for me. In 2010, I attended my first Scaling New Heights conference, which is a conference coming up in a couple of weeks in Orlando, Florida. There's another great one, Accountex, used to be called Sleater Conference. That's coming up in Boston in a few months. And then QuickBooks Online has QuickBooks Connect, or whatever general ledger you're using, they probably have a conference. Your state CPA chapters probably have conferences each year. At these conferences, there's generally an exhibitor hall, and these developers are so happy to talk to you about what their app does, and you can really zero in on the questions you want to ask that you can't tell when you read the little blurb about them on their website. And they're very eager to help, and most of them, a lot of them, like the founder is there, and they're happy to talk to you about your specific client needs for this app, and they'll really hook you up with solutions and support. So the tech conferences are really great face-to-face options. So I would really underline that. For us, it was a game changer, those tech conferences, when trying to pick which apps and all that. Also with research here on screen, you can see I say also trial. There's no getting past it. You're going to have to try the app. Nothing replaces this step, at least not that I found. I would make lists and cross-reference, and then I'd rank them, and I was scoring each one against the other. Which one should I do? You know, because it's hard to find the time to do all this, right? We have our client work to do, but nothing replaces this step. You actually have to put it to the test. And so we did that. When we were looking for the bill pay app we wanted, we went and tried one on, and we put it to the test for several months. Most of these apps will offer free trials, so that helps. You may want to do, as you evaluate these apps, make sure that you're not convinced that you need bells and whistles offered by an app. It's easy to be convinced that you need something really cool that they offer. And maybe you do, maybe you don't. But again, go back to your listed needs and see, how it fits what you're really looking for. Because at the end of the day, you just want to offer the services that your firm, lists on your website or wherever, in the most efficient way possible. Because a profitable firm, not only is that the reason you're in business, but a profitable firm can afford better staff, and it just really makes for a healthier business. And that's going to be the best customer service for your clients. So once you've selected the apps you're going to use in your firm, you've researched them, tried them out, and then you select them, then you want to become experts. Make sure that your staff who will be using these tools are experts. Many of these apps have training programs. They're usually free. That helps your staff learn how to use the app. And it helps your staff learn or understand the integration of data. It's great to kickstart training of a new staff. When you have a new hire and you're like, I have to spend the next several weeks now with this person training them so that I give them the best start possible so that they can help my firm the best. And yet it's hard to find all that time because you have other work to do. So when you can start a new hire and put them into these training programs, it's the best way for them to learn. These apps have built these training programs, so it's best for them to teach them anyway. And then you get some breathing room in those first weeks while you're training to go off and do some of your other work. So I love these training programs. We just onboarded a new staff person this month, and she is off getting certified in the very apps that we work on, and so that makes me feel great. She feels great, and so that's a really important training piece there. They also will give you, these training programs also may end with a certification badge, and you and your staff can show these badges on your websites, on your business cards. Also, some of these apps have websites that list who their experts are, who their certified accountants are. And so you may get referrals from their website when some business owner finds a really cool app that they want to use, and they look for help on it and they find your name listed as an expert, that's a great marketing opportunity for you. So keep that in mind. All righty, polling question number 3. What's your best source of information when looking for a solution? Do you call your colleagues, your friends? By friends, I mean friends in the accounting business. I don't mean your high school buddies, unless they're also accounting professionals. Or do you go to conferences, go through the exhibit hall, talk to all the apps? What's the best one? Do you Google it? Just see what the world has to say? These are all great, great solutions, by the way. Or some other way of finding information. And if you do choose other, let us know what it is by typing it into the questions. Okay, great. Most everyone has voted now, and it is a toss-up, pretty much a toss-up between asking colleagues and Googling it. Yes, 2 very, very good ways of doing it. I'm just going to stress again the conferences. They are just an amazing way to go see the information and talk to not just the developers, but you'll talk to other colleagues that are kind of hanging around their booths. That was just major for us. Okay, I'm going to close this poll. And let's move on. Finally, you've worked really hard researching and selecting apps. And it's time to implement your new solutions. And before we go on, let me just say that at some point after the research, you just have to go with something. And I would find myself tending to fret about, is this perfect? Get yourself to a place where you feel that there's definitely some advantage that the app is bringing to you. Pick the best one that you can at the time. I mean, again, we're in the early adopter stage still. These third-party developers are still trying to create the solutions that we're asking for. It is still a new frontier. Everything is not out there yet. So we have a tendency as accounting professionals to be perfectionists. So definitely do your research, but I'm also going to say at some point, you're going to have to judge this yourself, but at some point, just go for it. You can change. We have done that. We have researched, picked one, gone for it, and then, you know, a year or so later, found a different solution, waited, and then decided we've got to switch. That's okay. You can do that. So keep that in mind. All right, implementing that app. First of all, plan the implementation. Don't just walk in and cause a lot of chaos in the firm that day. Plan the implementation and the use of the app. I'm talking about picking the start date. When are you going to start using it? Make a checklist of the steps that you're going to use to implement that'll guide you through the implementation so that you don't miss anything. You'll need to gather the information that you'll need during the implementation. So whatever is required for setup. If you're going to set up payroll for all your clients, make sure you've gathered all the information. You're going to need their bank account information, their tax ID number, their federal and state, all their rates, tax rate, all that information you need. If you're moving to a new general ledger, say you're moving to QuickBooks Online, get their beginning balances, all their open payables, open receivables. Get the information you're going to need for that app all together so that you can be ready for implementation day or days, right? You might plan a schedule of moving one client at a time onto this app. And document how the app is going to be used once it is implemented. And this is how your staff are going to perform those services that you sell to clients. And you probably have multiple checklists for the different tasks related to this app. So just for example, if you're paying bills for a client and you've picked your bill pay app, you may have one checklist of what the steps are when your staff enter the bills. You may have another checklist for what it looks like for the person who pays the bills. You may have another checklist of what it looks like for the person in charge of managing the vendor and inviting them to set up to get paid electronically and asking for their W-9, things like that. So be ready, think out this process for how you're going to implement and then use this app. Then you're going to execute and you're going to follow that plan. And I'm going to suggest implementing one app at a time. That can reduce the chaos, and probably one client at a time. I mean, if I think back, we would do like 6 to 9 months where we would research, pick an app, and then, spend the next month watching it. And in the early days, we were picking one app at a time and putting one client on it at a time, right? So, but, if you're feeling crazy and you're going to do a bunch of apps at once and a bunch of clients, go for it, but it might be a little chaotic, right? So think about that. It could be a rough time otherwise, so I'm just trying to help you keep things sane, because you do have to support client work at the same time that you're doing something. And this app selection, as important as it is, can be disruptive, right? But once you get it implemented and going, then you're going to bring in all the optimized efficiency and all that sort of stuff. So set up the firm's staff's access to apps, right? So when you implement this new app, you've got to invite each of your staff to it and give them the proper access for whatever role they're going to be playing. That's why I previously was saying that you should make a plan, not only of how you're going to implement. One of the steps will be to invite your staff, but also the plan of who's going to do what work and how the app is going to be used, so that you know which staff need which permissions. Then you're going to set up the firm's clients' users. Now, you may be using apps where your clients are not going to log in at all. They don't even need to know how you do things. For example, your tax preparation software. Your clients may never log into that. In other cases, you're going to use apps where, like I was talking about with Expensify or whatever you use for expense reimbursement or company credit card management, where you may have your client's staff logging in to enter all the charges they want to be reimbursed for. So you'll need to set up those users, and you may want to have some help in how to communicate the value of these apps to clients, because you're in charge of running your firm and setting up what tools your firm is going to use. Put your hands on your hips and be bossy and say, this is our firm, this is how we do things here. But when the app is involved with the client, you also kind of have to help them through it. Some of our clients are just as nervous or more than we are about, is this safe? What is this app we're using? I don't feel comfortable. What's a browser? So you have to be able to communicate that to them. And a lot of these apps can help you by giving you marketing materials that'll show the value, or links to videos for these apps. You could put these links on your firm's website if you want to, or you could have a little training website or sheet that you give to your client when you're going to implement an app where the client is going to be involved in using pieces of it. So as you implement these apps for each client, it's great if you can follow some kind of step-by-step instructions with each one, how to implement it, how you're going to use it, and then how you're going to train them to use it. And you can use intake forms. You could Google Forms or whatever you want to use, where you can ask all that necessary information to get all that data that you need from clients so you can get them set up nicely. So execute that plan. And then training, and I just touched on this. You've got to train your staff. We talked a minute ago about getting them certified on each of these apps. You've got to train the client. So figure out, that's part of your plan. How do you train the client? Do you have web sessions like this one we're on right now with your client? Or do you go in and have a training session? Or do you make a flyer that's 1, 2, 3, shows them what they need to do? They don't need to know everything about the app if your firm is managing it and administering the app. They may just need to know the how do I enter my charges so I get reimbursed part, right? You don't need to overwhelm them with too much information. When you're training your staff, the more they understand about the integration of the app, that helps in the successful deployment of the app. You also may want to set up some kind of schedules on your calendar to uh, have your clients or your staff be accountable, kind of like checking in with you every so often. So you want to support your clients and your staff, be there for them. So we said plan, execute, train, but you also need to support them in the don't just set it up and leave. So especially in the beginning as they need you. So evaluate the success of the app periodically. Make sure it's serving the needs of the firm. Make sure it's serving the needs of the client, and make sure it's effectively creating profit for the firm. And then keep up with it. Keep up with new technologies and integrations. Things change very quickly in this world of cloud accounting apps, which I have to say, it can be a thing to keep up with, but there's so much still that needs to be built. There's so many solutions I'm still waiting for. So in some ways, I'm thankful that they're changing quickly. There are just developers out there hungry to create the solution we're looking for. Another really great reason to go to these accounting tech conferences, because those developers want to hear from you. So make sure your staff continues to renew their certifications and attend webinars to learn about the new features being launched in the apps that you use, so that you can kind of keep up with things. In our firm, we have something called the chief role, and each of us has a different chief position, and we keep it for about 6 months. We rotate this role about twice a year. So each of our staff will be like the QuickBooks chief or the Bill.com chief or the Expensify chief or whatever our main apps are. And each of those staff members, whoever the chief is responsible for that period for updating all of us at our company meetings on what new releases have come out on that app, and just being engaged in all of the news to keep up with that app. And then they'll present it to the rest of us. And here's our final polling question. Is anyone familiar with Canon scanners? I want to thank Canon for being our sponsor today. So if you could, please answer whether you are familiar with Canon scanners. Yes, you love them, or maybe you haven't used them and you want to learn more. Or maybe you didn't know Canon had scanners. So we're getting a split there. People either love them or didn't know about it. So good, now you know. All righty. We've got most of the vote in there, so I'm going to click. Well, I'll leave a few more seconds because this is for your CPE, so please answer. We're at 89%. Give me a 90. Give me a 90. One more person out there. Thank you. Okay, closing that poll. All righty. So in closing, remember the purpose of using these apps. It's more profitable if you use a core set of apps that you and your staff are experts in than it is to use all sorts of different apps that you maybe don't even know that well and that differ from one client to another when you're performing the same service. Like if you're paying bills for people and you work on one client and that client uses this bill pay solution, and then you work on another client and they use something totally different, how do you and your staff feel like experts at it? That's very difficult. It can happen. We did that in our first early days. I would work with clients who were on NetSuite, Peachtree, QuickBooks, and all sorts of other solutions surrounding those. And I could, for accountants, theoretically, show us the general ledger, will make it happen. We understand accounting, but when you're talking about profitability of a firm and you're talking about selling services, if you can define your services and the way you perform them and select tools that you're experts in, you're gonna get a lot more profitable in your firm. And furthermore, if you're offering fixed fee services, if you fix the price, if you fix your revenue, you really need to tighten up that service delivery. So find your core set of apps that allows your firm to provide its services instead of building the firm around one client's needs. Meaning build a business to support multiple clients. You're not here to build a job where you're almost the employee for that one big client. Anyway, I just want to close on this note. My partner quotes her Austrian skiing instructor who often said, "Keep the knees bent." I love that. So be flexible, right? Be willing to adapt. Be ready for this new frontier that we're living in. It is exciting. It's fun. It is overwhelming, but there are just some really great solutions out there, and I wish you all the best in finding them. I'm going to open this up to Q&A now. If there were any questions, I think Sarah's going to come on the line and see if there were any topics we wanted to talk more about.
Yeah, sure. So one person had a question about when you're testing the apps, how do you test the integration? Do you have a whole bunch of trials that you integrate together? How do you test the integration to see how it works?
So if you're doing like the first test and you don't want to test it with real live data, I'm just going to talk about this from the QuickBooks world. Because I do a lot of training for Intuit around the country, so I'm in QuickBooks world, right? But I know that, I've used a bunch of other software too, and they're mostly similar. But in the world of QuickBooks, but you can apply this to others, you can take sample data. You can either take the QuickBooks desktop sample data file and push it up to a free trial, 30 days free of QuickBooks Online, and then you go out to the App Store and you get a 30-day free trial of that app you want to try, and you hook it up for real. Sync it. Go enter, let's say it's a bill pay app. Let's say you're trying out bill.com. Go enter some bills in bill.com, push it. You've integrated it in the first steps to that sample data QuickBooks Online company free trial. Push that data over. Go look at it. That is the best way, because the integration that's so important to us is hard for, I find that it seems hard for the developers to get all of that across, because I know that the developers are not hiding things. I've talked to enough of them. I've been on both sides of that. They're not trying to hide anything, but almost every time I go to the trial period of an app, I find myself saying, oh, I didn't realize it did that. And then I think, well, yeah, I mean, that's so detailed. When would that have even come up in the conversation? But sometimes it can be a game changer. I mean, I remember taking off all the check marks of our listed needs when we were looking for one app, and I hadn't thought about the fact that the document, the source document, did not push over to QuickBooks, and yet another one did, and neither of them mentioned it. But it was so important that one of them pushed the document into QuickBooks Online. We weren't even asking for it, but it was so cool and helpful. It was like, I wouldn't have even known that if I hadn't tried it. They weren't saying anything. Nobody was saying anything about that. So yeah, definitely try it with sample data. And then when you're ready and and you've chosen it, pick that one client that for whatever reason you feel like you have the best chance of really testing it out, and then try it on one client.
Okay, thank you. Another question, have you had any issues with security risk? That's always a big topic when people talk about the cloud.
I tell you, yes, I have. Oh my goodness. And it's from the positive side for the cloud. So I have not had any hacking, or I've not had any experience where our information has been inappropriately disclosed, I'll say. But I have seen the flip side. I mean, I've walked into several businesses who were, well, one in particular comes to mind, but who were recovering from staff having committed fraud and stealing money from the company, stealing checks, writing false checks. And we've moved them to some cloud solutions. And that, in one particular case, it was just a huge fraud situation. And QuickBooks Desktop had been sitting on the one accounting clerk's laptop on her desk, and she'd worked there for a while. Everyone trusted her, and they didn't even know her password to get on her laptop. They couldn't remember the password to get on QuickBooks Desktop, and so they just were busy with other things, and they rarely ever went over there and looked at things in the accounting software. And so once it came to light, when I think vendor or someone called about something fraudulent. The police got involved and everything, and it came to be that the accounting clerk had been writing checks for herself in different names and then trying to cashing some and not on others. So we moved them to QuickBooks Online so that the principals all had access anytime they wanted to QuickBooks Online. The person doing the accounting knew that they didn't have to come over to her desk to see it. Now that one person was gone, but the next person who was going to come in and do the accounting, you know, there's just the feeling of someone is probably less likely to commit fraud if they know everybody's watching more. And then we moved them to Bill.com, and Bill.com has positive pay and all that. And then let me also add here, this is, I mean, for us, Bill.com, but other bill pay services may have the same situation. We also just recently, a few months ago, had a situation where we were using Bill.com to pay the bills for this company for several years, and someone stole one of the checks that we sent for that client to one of their vendors. Some criminal intercepted it in a mailbox or something, stole the check, took the number off, the account numbers off the bottom, created a ton of other checks, and mailed them out to people for, you know, bought things and whatever fraudulently or paid fraudulently. And so all of these checks started coming up, and we had different law enforcement officers calling from different states. And in that situation, none of them were cashed. Our client never had any loss of even $1 because in that case, Bill.com or whatever your bill pay app is, their check information was on there. And so my client's check numbers or account numbers were hidden. And then Bill.com uses positive pay, which means not only does the check have to be presented to be cashed, but when the check cashing, whatever bank or check cashing company goes to cash the check for whoever's presenting it, it has to match the dollar amount and check number. So, you know, those were all failing. So the fraud, it was a huge multi-state, they tried, it didn't work. I mean, there are just incredible controls out there that are so much better than the way we've done things in the past, just from technology, really.
Okay, I'm going to end this, Laura, with throwing you a soft lob here. Do you have any suggestions for cloud-based accounting and tax softwares?
Well, I use QuickBooks Online. So, and then there's Intuit Tax Online, which is now called ProConnect. They just renamed it this past year. And so for tax preparers out there, if your clients are keeping their books in QuickBooks Online, or if you as the firm are keeping their books in QuickBooks Online, then really, really incredible, powerful tool is at the end of the year to be able to reconcile. You can even use this tool in QuickBooks Online called Trial Balance, where you can enter the non-book adjustments that won't go hit the general ledger, but you maybe need to adjust some numbers, and then take your final numbers there and click a button and push them over to the tax return, which is also Intuit's tax product. Of course, they have Lacert Tax, but their online version, which uses the Lacert Tax engine, is called ProConnect, and just really powerful, cool way to be total cloud accounting firm there. Okay, I think that brings us to the top of the hour. So I want to thank you all so much for being here with us today, and good luck to you. There are a lot of great apps out there. Remember to use like Facebook and LinkedIn groups to ask your colleagues. There's a lot of help out there from those of us who have been doing that and those of us who are new to it. It's a really good community. I've been so impressed. We all know as accounting professionals, we cannot possibly together do all of the accounting that's needed out there. So I find everyone to be so happy about sharing their experience and their suggestions with each other. So good luck to you all. Have a great week.
All right. Well, thank you so much. Fantastic job, as always. Really do appreciate all your time and extremely valuable insights. Sarah, thank you for picking out some of the questions that came in. We'll make sure any that may have slipped through will get passed along. And of course, thanks to both Ken and Ayara for sponsoring today's course and bringing it to our members. We'll wrap up here today. We'll get to work on issuing credit for everyone. You'll see an email from us here at CPA Academy letting you know that it is set. We'll also get this recording posted later today for you to review anything you may have missed. So Laura, once again, thank you so much. Really do appreciate it, and hopefully we will have you back with us soon.
Thanks, Matt. Bye, everybody.